The diner clock ticked loudly in the silence, each second echoing through the nearly empty room like a heartbeat that had forgotten how to feel alive. Rain streaked down the windows, blurring the lights of passing cars. It was just another gray morning in the middle of nowhere, and for her, it was another day to survive. Nora kept her head down, wiping the same counter for the third time, though it was already spotless. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from something deeper, something that had been living inside her for too long. Her uniform hung loosely on her shoulders, her eyes, once bright and curious, now carried the heaviness of someone who had learned too early that life could be cruel. The doorbell jingled, a sound so ordinary, yet in that moment, it made her flinch. She froze, the rag slipping from her hand as she turned. A man in a brown jacket stood at the entrance, shaking the rain off his hat. He looked like he'd been traveling all night, weary but polite. He smiled faintly when he caught her eye, but Nora didn't smile back. She couldn't. "Don't touch me, please," she whispered, before he could even speak. The man blinked, confused, his hand still on the back of the chair he'd been about to pull out. She said it so softly, so brokenly, that it wasn't a warning, it was a plea. A plea shaped by memory, fear, and something invisible that hung in the air between them. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the healing power of compassion, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Reports, because stories like this one remind us how one small act can change everything. The man nodded slowly, sensing something he didn't yet understand. "Of course," he said quietly, taking his seat without another word. Nora turned away, pretending to check the coffee machine, pretending not to notice how her hands were shaking. The diner was nearly empty, just her and him, and the ghosts that refused to leave her alone. Her name tag said Nora, but that wasn't the name she used to have. Once, she'd been someone else entirely. A young woman with dreams of studying art, of painting skylines and sunsets. That was before him. Before she learned that love could be a prison when given to the wrong person. She'd run away 2 years ago, leaving behind a house that no longer felt like home, a face that once whispered love and later screamed control. She thought moving to this small town and working in a roadside diner would keep her safe. But fear doesn't disappear when you change your address, it follows you, whispering that it's still out there. The man at the table ordered coffee and eggs, nothing unusual. But there was something about the way he watched her, not in a predatory way, not even with pity, just with quiet awareness. She caught him glancing at the bruises faintly visible near her wrist, and she quickly tugged her sleeve down. She hated that look. The one that said "you're broken." Because she wasn't broken. She was still here. Still breathing. That had to count for something, but the silence between them stretched on until it became unbearable. Finally, the man spoke, his voice low and gentle. "Rough morning?" She didn't answer. Instead, she set his plate down and turned to walk away. Then came the sound, faint at first, but unmistakable, the crunch of tires on gravel outside, followed by the slam of a car door. Nora froze mid-step. The color drained from her face. Her body stiffened like she'd been struck by lightning. He was here, she didn't need to see him to know. The way her pulse quickened, the way her breath shortened, it was instinct, trauma, memory colliding all at once. The man at the table noticed immediately. "Are you okay?" he asked, standing halfway up. But Nora didn't hear him. Her eyes were fixed on the diner's glass door, where a shadow appeared, tall and broad. The door swung open with a jangle of bells that suddenly sounded like sirens, and there he was, Caleb. The man she'd once called her husband. His smile was the same, calm, polite, charming. But Nora knew what lived behind that smile. The rage. The control. The possessiveness that had turned her world into a cage. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, stepping inside like nothing had ever happened. "You didn't think I'd stop looking for you, did you?" Nora stepped back, trembling. "You need to leave." The man in the brown jacket, whose name she still didn't know, stood up slowly. "Sir, I think you should listen to her." Caleb's eyes darted toward him. "Who the hell are you?" "Just someone having breakfast," he said calmly, though his stance said otherwise. The diner air grew thick. The rain outside grew louder. Caleb took another step forward, his voice lowering. "This is between me and my wife. Stay out of it." "She's not your wife anymore," the man replied quietly. "And you should go." Caleb's jaw tightened. His eyes, cold and burning, flicked between them. Nora's heart pounded as she whispered, "Please, just go." But Caleb didn't. He never listened when she begged, and then, the unthinkable happened. Caleb reached for her arm. She flinched so hard that the tray she'd been holding crashed to the floor, plates shattering around them. "Don't touch me," she cried out, her voice breaking. It wasn't just fear, it was every moment of pain she'd ever buried, every scream she'd ever swallowed. The diner fell silent, except for the pounding of rain. For a moment, everything stood still. Then, the man in the brown jacket stepped between them. "You heard her," he said, steady but deadly calm. "Don't touch her." Caleb sneered. "You're making a mistake." "No," he said softly, "you already made it." Before Caleb could respond, the door swung open again, this time, with a blast of wind and the sharp beam of red and blue lights cutting through the rain. 2 police officers stormed in, hands on their weapons. Nora's manager must have called them. Caleb's face twisted with fury as they grabbed his arms, shouting something about a restraining order, about how she'd filed it months ago. He tried to resist, but it was over in seconds. As they dragged him outside, his eyes met Nora's, those same eyes that had once held her captive, and for the first time, she saw something new in them. Defeat. When the door finally closed behind him, the silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was lighter.